All right, welcome to The Explainer. Today we're heading down to the coast, to a city that's, well, a bit of an enigma. It's built on an island, walled in by centuries of stone, and it's absolutely steeped in secrets.
So, let's just get right into it. When I say Portsmouth, what pops into your head? I'm guessing Royal Navy, right? HMS Victory, massive warships, the sound of cannons. And yeah, you're not wrong. But that's just the surface story, the one everyone knows. We're going to go deeper. We're looking for the other story. The one about cursed objects, geniuses you've never heard of, and myths that are so old they've practically become history themselves.
So how do we get to those secrets? Well, first, we've got to understand why they're even there in the first place. And it all comes down to one thing: geography. See, Portsmouth's whole identity was hammered into shape by where it is and its job as basically England's shield for hundreds of years. And this right here, this is the key. Portsmouth is the UK's only island city. Think about that. It's both a massive advantage and a huge problem. On one hand, you've got this perfect, deep harbor that's easy to defend. But on the other hand, it's like painting a giant bullseye on yourself for any enemy with a navy. And that constant threat, that feeling of always being a target, it's shaped absolutely everything. You know, what's just fascinating here is how one single idea can completely set a city's destiny. We're talking 1495. This dry dock, it was the absolute cutting edge of technology. It was like the SpaceX of its day. Suddenly, you could build and fix ships in a way nobody had ever dreamed of. It was a huge statement, and it's what made Portsmouth the permanent, beating heart of the Royal Navy. And the craziest part? It's still there. You can still see it today. And from there, it just escalates. Over the next 400 years, the city basically gets wrapped in armor. It starts small, with a single stone tower back in 1418. Then Henry VIII comes along and builds these massive, hulking castles. And the grand finale? The Victorian era. They build this insane ring of sea and land forts. They called them Palmerston's Follies, that were so powerful, so intimidating, no one ever even tried to attack. They just looked at them and went, nope, not worth it. Okay, so you've got this fortress city. But what happens inside those walls? When your city is constantly filled with sailors, soldiers, spies, and yeah, a whole lot of smugglers, you start to get a different kind of story brewing just beneath the surface. The kind of history that doesn't get written down in the official books. I mean, just think about it for a second. For centuries, this was a city of goodbyes. Men sailing off, not knowing if they'd ever come back. It was a place where life was lived right on the edge, all the time. And that kind of intense emotion, it doesn't just vanish into thin air. It soaks into the very stones of the city. It leaves behind whispers, legends, and, as you might expect, a lot of ghost stories. And the folklore here is just wow. It's incredibly varied. We're talking about everything you can imagine. Secret tunnels for smugglers crisscrossing under the old town? Sure. But then you get the really chilling stuff, like the stories about Wimmerian Manor, a place where people claim clocks just stop, all at the same time, at the exact moment someone dies in the house. Spooky, right? Okay, check this story out. There's this bust of King Charles I. And for generations, the local legend was simple: do not move this bust. Well, what happens in 1937? They loan it out to an exhibition in London. And not long after, World War II breaks out, and Portsmouth gets absolutely hammered in the Blitz. Now, was it just a tragic coincidence? Of course, almost certainly. But if you're living in a city that's built on superstition and naval lore, well, that looks a lot like a curse coming true in the worst way imaginable. But it's not all ghosts and curses, not by a long shot. The city's secrets are also about people. If you look past all the military stuff, past the admirals and the fortifications, you find that Portsmouth was this kind of pressure cooker, a place that forged incredible minds who would go on to change the entire world, often from the quietest little backstreets. So here's a question for you. What do the world's greatest detective, the modern education system, and the Industrial Revolution itself all have in common? It sounds like one of those impossible pub quiz questions, right? But the answer is that all three of these world-changing things have roots that lead directly back to this one small, crowded city. And this is what's so amazing. These incredible ideas came from the most unlikely people. You had Mark Brunel in the dockyard, basically inventing the modern production line. Just down the road, you've got a young doctor, Arthur Conan Doyle, who's so bored waiting for patients that he just starts writing and ends up creating Sherlock Holmes. And maybe the most incredible story of all, a local shoemaker, John Pounds, sees these poor kids on the street with nothing, and he just starts teaching them to read in his tiny shop.
That one simple act of kindness, it started the entire movement for free education in Britain.
All right, let's peel back one last layer. This is where things get really weird. This is the point where solid, documented history starts to get blurry, and it dissolves into myth. A place where even the modern world of the 20th century starts to feel a bit strange.
Isn't it fascinating? You have this city that is so important to the official history of Britain. You know, D-Day, the Royal Navy, hard facts. And yet it has this kind of shadow self, this deep connection to the nation's oldest, most powerful myths. I mean, you have serious academics who theorize that one of King Arthur's legendary battles was fought right there in the harbor. And then there's the local lore, which just refuses to die, that the Holy Grail itself was hidden for a time on nearby Hayling Island.
And don't think for a second that these mysteries are all ancient history. Fast forward to 1950, a pilot reports a shining disk over the naval dockyard. Now, this wasn't just some blurry photo. No, it was tracked on military radar. It was moving at speeds that were just impossible for the time. And this single event was so serious, it triggered the UK's very first official UFO investigation. And the conclusion? They never identified it. It remains an official government-stamped mystery hanging right over the city.
And that kind of weird, wonderful, eccentric character is still alive and well today. I mean, this is the only place in the world where you can still take a commercial hovercraft to get around. It's the city that introduced the umbrella to England, all thanks to one guy who is relentlessly made fun of for years. Even its nickname, Pompey, everyone calls it that. Nobody can actually agree where it came from. It's still a mystery.
So we've dug through all these layers, the history, the myths, the geniuses, the ghosts. What are we left with? What is Portsmouth really?
Well, it's a city of contradictions, right? It's a place that's supposed to be a rigid, disciplined military fortress, but it somehow becomes this hotbed for wild creativity. It's a tough, gritty naval port that inspires this incredible social compassion. It's the kind of city where the Industrial Revolution and King Arthur's legends feel like they could be happening on the same street corner at the same time.
And here's the kicker. All of that is squeezed into the most densely populated city in the UK outside of London. That density is so important to understanding it. It means everywhere you go, every step you take on that island, you are literally walking on top of layers and layers of these amazing, contradictory, and frankly deeply weird stories.
And that really gets you thinking, doesn't it? What secrets does your own city hold? Because if Portsmouth teaches us anything, it's that no place is ever just one thing. Even the places you think you know best, they're probably hiding the most incredible stories. You just have to know where to look.